Brad Fittler joins us in the studio. Welcome.
Welcome. Thank
Saw you
you
outside the building at about 7 o'clock this morning.
Yes. It's the whip is out,
Uh-huh.
as they say, but no, it's been good. Well, it's cold outside, so it's nice in the studio.
Look, I remember watching. We got the NRL here when it was called the Winfield Cup, Brad, and that was in 1989. Was the first time that the competition. We started to get the highlights program on a Monday night. All the finals games, and of course, Canberra getting through and beating Balmain at the time. You were 19 years old, from what I remember.
I was 17.
17.
I was 17 in 1989. That was the first year I played, and then some funny games, but we played the Tigers in the last game at Leichhardt in front of a packed crowd. Then we went Tigers again in the semi. Then we played Canberra, who beat us, and they went on to win the grand final. But
and you bounced back the next year and won it.
Yeah, we sure did. No. We got beat the next year, 1990.
That's right, won it the year after.
They actually chose me to play over Chris Mortimer. Chris Mortimer was in the car park, actually taking a screw out of his hand with a drill out of his out of the boot of his car. And I ended up playing. And
For real?
For real.
For real?
For real. And
so what I mean, he's got a screw. Just what? He just brings the drill out, and that's it.
He just pulled the screw out, and then we won the grand final the year after. So first time Penrith had won, and what an amazing experience. They had really put the actual suburb and the area on the map.
And it was a homegrown team as well. That was the delight about it, wasn't it? Because the Alexander boys, yourself, Mark Geyer,
John Cartwright, Brad Izzard, all the boys that had come up through Penrith. It was awesome time to be a Panther.
So did you actually? A lot of you guys, did you play juniors together as well?
Well, I was younger than them, so no. A lot of those blokes, the ages were quite spread out. A few of them had come from Cambridge Park.
Oh yeah, because of course Royce was a bit older as well, wasn't he?
And Royce was from me as a country boy. So.
Yeah. What a great team.
I think coming through at that age and coming into a team like that, it had so many men and so many people in the middle of their footy careers. It was just a great balance, and it really helped me on my path.
This is Brad Fittler with us in the studio. We've got the Nines, of course, happening at the end of January. I'll get onto that in a minute. And when you say men and boys as well, and Dino's in the studio, and you'll love this as well, Dino, is that, it's one of the things, I don't know whether we've lost it, Brad, or not, but you don't get taught unless you're in that environment, do you? In all kinds of codes, that you need the slap from the boys in the back of the bus and all of that, and the characters that you would have played with as well. Because, I mean, you're a great player, but you're a young upstart. You would have had your place, wouldn't you?
I tell you a name, sorry to jump in, a name you just mentioned, it was a great bloke, Royce Simmons.
Oh, great guy.
One of the all-time great guys. I remember playing
2 tries in that final when you won it, eh?
A million years ago, we played a test match against Australia, and we had one of our very rare victories. And Royce was one of the few guys that went out, and just a thoroughly good bloke, and just, would have been a pleasure playing with a guy like that.
Mate, absolutely. You knew your spot. I was a young kid, and they gave you leverage and they gave you room to be a kid. But then as soon as you stepped out of line, I remember a funny story. I used to wear an earring as a kid, and Roy Simmons and Graham Bradley actually chased me down to Penrith Leagues, tied me down to the ground, just ripped the earring straight out. They said, we'll cop a lot of things, but we're not going to cop earrings. So
you see, you wouldn't get away with it. That's so horrible these days, but I can understand why they actually would have done it, wouldn't they?
But they allowed me to do a lot of other things that would be considered these days, inappropriate. But, that's the way it was, and everyone knew their place. They knew their place on the field. If you were young and you were coming through and you were cheeky, the other team would belch you, and the team nearly allowed. So, some way there was justice out there, and it found its balance, which I think which made every footballer that I played with in those days were always good people. And it was because, there was always a balance and people knew when to pull you in the line.
I don't know whether there was an innocence or something about it then, but they're just like I remember. I mean, it was obviously, I remember the ages. I remember Bradley Clyde playing for Canberra, coming off at lock, and he was 18 or 19. He was a giant of a man at that stage, and injuries sort of got him. But there just seemed to be, I don't know, just seemed to be a lot more camaraderie or something, or personality or something around then, wasn't it?
A thing came to pass today. In 1995, Brad Fittler was the highest paid player in rugby league with $1 million a year. Brad stood astride probably the part where they were still amateur, where the boys were getting paid but they were still working. And when Super League came to pass, everyone gave up work and became full-time rugby league players. And, of course, you would have seen a huge difference in what goes on, because when a man gets up has to go from 9 to 5, he's got a little bit of a different attitude to if he's just playing football for a living. That's the way it is.
Yeah, well, it's funny with the original video sessions when I first to go there, Graham Bradley and Cole Vandervoort, all these blokes who'd work all day out at a glass container place out of Penrith, they'd come and just sleep in the videos. Gus would allow it too, because he knew what everyone was going through. And then the whole adapting period was tough because you had Super League, NRL, the league had really lost favour in Australia. So you're always talking about a lot of different things, not necessarily the footy. And even footy itself, to the players, I think, rep footy became, just took a lot of shine off, because there was times when you didn't have Laurie Daly next to me. He was playing in Super League. So it was sort of very confusing time. The money was obviously good from a player's point of view. That got tapered. Now it's sort of coming back, which is fantastic. But, yeah, it was, if anything, out of that era, I've got to say it was more confusing than anything.
Because it took a long time to settle down, because you go from this sort of semi-professional era, full-on professional, where you got two leagues hate each other. It took 3-4 years for the game to come back together. And then
thank God it did, though, didn't it?
So true. Thank God it did. But just, to say to someone, right, you're now full-time football is a lot different to actually the process of going through your head of being a full-time footballer. I think players only right now are becoming full-time footballers, just knowing how to, fully utilise the whole day of rest, recovery, rehabilitation, prehabilitation, whatever they call now, and then also your weights and training. So it's only now I think players actually are proper, full-time, and knowing what to do.
And Brad, you have to go through the process too, don't you? I mean, I don't want to bring it up, but it's always going to be brought up. I mean, I've found it quite amusing that they found you asleep next to the police station.
I've got to say, it was a good night.
Mate, it would have been a great night, wouldn't it?
And I made a good decision, got in a cab. The cab driver just mustn't have understood or didn't think I was going to pay. But no, it was what?
I mean, no harm done in the end. But I mean, these days you just can't get away with it, can you? And the league wants something different, and I suppose people have just got to abide by it. That's just the way it is.
If anything, if that didn't happen, it most really changed my life. All those things, I suppose, steer towards who you are. But you're right. If they had cameras back then, I would have had to make some.
Well, he would have been in jail, mate. There's no question about that.
I would have had to make some bigger decisions at a younger age, which would have been, I'm sure, really hard, because I'm gathering I wasn't very mature at that age.
No, mate, you were 19 or 20. You're just doing what you do, isn't it?
I was on top of the world, so you couldn't have stopped me.
20-10 it is. Nines last year. I think the sight that was most people delighted in, probably the moment of the whole tournament, was the old fella getting the ball on the intercept and running.
Yes.
And mate, and a clean pair of heels too.
Well, it wasn't that clean. I had a sore hip, so I had my kids in the grandstand. They were on my right hand side. I knew where they were. And I was just trying to look cool. I wasn't going fast because my hip was hurting and the fact I was 42, but I wanted to look cool for them. But they hadn't seen me play. Honestly, it was one of the more memorable experiences in my life. Just the fact that the amount of people there, the way they treated me when I first got there. And when I got told later, actually, all the players that were sitting at the end of the ground, some people were telling me that they were cheering. They saw me take the intercept, and they were yelling. And Nathan Highmarsh, who just retired, he was sitting there going, he was spewing.
Of course he was, absolutely.
I nearly swore, actually, but he said, lucky bastard.
Yeah, exactly. He was.
Bastard.
I mean, everyone that was old or retired was hoping you'd get nailed, weren't they?
Yeah. That's right. Where I live right near King's Cross. I just moved.
Oh, Dino's familiar with that, aren't you, Dino? You know.
But I lived in a place called Rushcutters Bay, and there's a park there. It's a beautiful park. And
I know the park. We used to train there.
Well, there you go. Well, everyone used to stay in the hotel. I lived just behind the hotel, but I'd be around running with my daughter doing sprints, and that's where I train. Basically, I just get up early and go and do it. And the support I got from people like my age and older, just saying, it got a lot of coverage in Australia and become a real big thing, I think, for middle-aged men.
Of course, mate.
We
can
good on
still
your friend.
do it. We can
and
still do it.
Me training that.
Well, there was a lot of debate from all of us as to whether we should do it or not, because we wanted the Nines to always be this very serious competition that people, and we put a huge amount of money into it, a lot of thought as to how we structure it. And when the thought was, okay, do we have one or two sort of players who are past or retired come back in, would it be a good thing? And there was a general consensus, it would be. So for it to come out and the outcome of what it was, because Steve Menzies played as well.
Yes, he did.
Steve Menzies didn't score a try. So unlucky Steve.
That's funny, I'll tell you one thing.
On intercept try.
My two kids love their sport.
How old are they?
They're 10 and 8.
Great.
And they're big, strong kids, so they compete. It's quite easy for them to compete at the moment because of their size, and they love their sport. So, but my daughter come off, and I saw my kids. My kid was actually in a wheelchair because he had something cut out in his foot. Anyway, and my daughter said, "Oh, Dad, great try. That was fantastic," And my son come up and said, "What a great tackle on Ben Barber." I had a one-on-one tackle with Ben Barber, which was mostly my highlight. And I smashed him, actually. It was a beauty. And
Because getting hold of those slippery little roosters.
Mate, he had 20 metres.
Yeah.
He had 25.
And he had the full sideline.
That's right.
But the TV actually didn't show. I had a defender inside me, so I knew my inside was safe, and I just smashed him. But it was funny. My 8-year-old son didn't worry about the try, but he said, mate.
Great tackle.
Great tackle.
And how has it been back in the team environment after being 10 years out?
That was the best thing about it. That was one of the real, I think from the original point when they first asked me, I said yes straight away because I wanted to get fit.
Yep.
And then the process of going, because I go to the Roosters a fair bit, do a bit of work there, so I wanted to go and see what they were like, see what the young kids were like. I spent, all the 3 days room with Mitchell Pearce, which was was hilarious,
You
We're
would have
really
roomed
good
with his
mates.
dad, wouldn't you?
What's that?
You were just about roomed with his dad, wouldn't you?
Yeah, well, we were Snapchatting, we were doing some weird stuff, so, and then we're doing this helium thing as well. What's a... it's a helium,
and the thing, and then you start talking like sort of Mickey Mouse or something like that.
Because the other thing that's unique too is you're with all the players,
that's
like
right.
the entire lot.
I spend the time with that. I went and trained with the Roosters a couple of days.
Yep.
So I more than a couple of days, but I did sessions with them, like conditioning sessions and sort of ball work sessions, and then, like I said, turning up with them to an airport.
Yep.
Flying with them in uniform, being back in part of that environment was awesome. These young kids are really nice young kids.
Well, what we
when
need
you're at the ground, sorry to interrupt, mate.
I'm doing the interview here.
When you're at the ground with all the teams, how cool is
turn
that?
you off for a second and say, I've got a bloody question here for a second. No, I mean, part of it is actually being a fan. Is that we got to. Well, we need to touch base with you guys that have always loved as legends. You see, I mean, having you around the Nines as well is one thing. But, I mean, this actually really adds to it, I think. It just, if you're a fan in your 30s or 40s and you grew up with watching you guys in league and watching Blocker and watching all of these guys, there's nothing better than coming up and saying hello.
No, it was awesome.
Ruben Wiki.
It was
awesome.
Well, it's
the same, yeah.
So Rubes would be good. He's so fit at the moment. The one good thing was when we were in the bus, but they allowed me to have control of the iPod. So I had control of the music, and I had Bob Seger playing. I had Al Green. A bit of Jimmy Barnes and all these sort of old Fleetwood Mac.
Something with a guitar and some words in it, mate.
These blokes wouldn't have. They actually, after a while, they really appreciated it, and they loved all the old music. So
look, before you go, I need to ask you about this because GI, Tuvey was saying yesterday, two things I thought with Jeff Tuvey, which I didn't know. He was an accountant when they won in 1996. He had a job.
Yeah.
And then he was saying that he needs to give GI's got 10 weeks break, and he can't give Daly Cherry Evans and he can't give Kieran Foran the time. Now, I worked out GI's break takes him to the week before the Nines. So, burnout being this big issue, it is an issue, isn't it? I mean, if you were going to play the Nines, how much time do you need to get your body and your fitness and everything back up to playing at that level again? Would you need to?
No, well, the thing is you got unlimited interchange. So that helped me unbelievably, having that. But, no, mate, these days, like I said, they're fully professional. So it's not as though, outside blokes who are very young and mostly a bit dumb, they're fit. The whole way along. They don't want to come back, and in pre-season on a bad, unfit, overweight. It just doesn't happen anymore. So, mate, Greg Inglis will put on a couple of kilo. He'll sort of have to come back in. Within a couple of weeks, he'll be straight back to prime condition. So, mate, if anything, I found what it did do, and I think all the coaches found too, it just helped. It's like a little trip away, and they all do it. It's a little morale boost. You get away, you're relaxed. It's not like a grand final. You're not playing grand finals. They're not state of origin games, but it's in a really good atmosphere. The way the people approached it and the spirit and the way they dress up was an eye-opener and really put, from a player's point of view, it just had everyone talking. So, I think it was just a win for everyone.
Can't let you go without mentioning this word either. Origin, God, it was good, wasn't it? How long did we wait, mate? I mean, there's about 5 New South Wales fans here in the bloody country. There's about 5 of us, and we've waited 8 long, miserable, bitter years for this.
Because you can't
live in the now, mate. Live in the now. It's over. The dynasty bollocks, mate. It's gone, isn't it?
I'll tell you, when you have a look at the wash-up, New South Wales won it by winning 4 tries the whole series. Incredible.
You know what I think?
Incredible. They just had to. They just defended, tackled.
Yes.
My personal opinion is
two of the best games of all time.
The winning illusion of that series was Queensland not taking shots at goal.
Well,
I'm a big fan of taking shots at goals and drop goals.
If you go back to last year, the game last year, if they had taken goals, New South Wales, Queensland just kept giving penalties away.
Yep.
They kept giving penalties away.
He'll be a New South Wales fan next year, mate. He'll be a bandwagon jumper.
Here's what I can't believe, though. I don't think there's enough emphasis taken on the 2 points because you should take the 2.
Hey, they actually did this in the Test match on the weekend, remember?
Yep.
He did when we came back. That's exactly what they did. Call for the 2 points, mate.
It's a big point of difference between rugby league and union at the moment.
Yep.
And it irks me to death. Union is so, Great game, and I've seen it when it's played at its best. It's as entertaining as any game.
Big time.
You know, when over-refereed and people are taking goal kicks, I've never seen a more boring game.
Oh, come on, scrum resets. I mean, hello. I mean,
you've
that's
got all these great athletes that are sitting there, and, you know, you have these wonderful centres that just don't do anything. You know, so in a way, I like your old style mentality, but the good thing about our game now is they don't take goals.